Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Yash. I'm the developer relations manager at Rocket.Chat. So, basically, my job is to go out there, present to the community what are the different things we are building and helping them build and helping them move forward with the different things we are doing as well. For this particular session, I'm focusing on node.js VM story of our apps engine. So, I'll quickly share my screen and show you all a few slides which I've prepared, and that might help you as well to know about this a bit more. The basic of this thing is running plugins within your web app, right? So if I move forward in this, I'll ask first of all, what are we talking about today, right? So the first thing is plugins. So external plugins, we'll be talking about external plugins. How do we generally implement them? Then we'll talk about the core thing about this, the Node.js VM module and the things we have built on top of that, Rocket.Chat Apps engine. So let's move on to the first thing, that is external plugins. So what do we mean by external plugins? Think about it as any app that you download. Think about it any kind of an extension that you develop on top of your app, right? Any iOS and Android core operating systems do not have all the functionalities built in. They have multiple things built in, but they cannot build everything, right? So they have these external third-party agents which actually make sure to extend their stuff. Like for example, you use a Zomato or Swiggy app. Those are some kind of external plugins. That is for an operating system. Okay. If I talk about maybe another thing, like you are using Discord right now, there might be definitely multiple bots that are communicating with each other, right? If I am sending OTP, there might be external agents doing that. So these are external plugins built by different people, and we implement them within our application to extend the core functionality of it. But the second question comes over here is, why do we need them? We can build most things ourselves, right? But again, that's the thing. If we could build everything, we would not have other people get to the excellent stuff they are doing. Like for example, Apple builds a lot of things. They build iMessages. And then at the same time, they have WhatsApp integration as well, WhatsApp app in their ecosystem. Why? Because there are a lot of customers they lose if they don't have that WhatsApp integration and just force people to use iMessages. So it enables developers outside of the organizations to create and contribute to the ecosystem. I'm focusing on the word ecosystem over here, right? I'll tell you about it. The next thing it does is it makes it easy to add new features, even internally, if you have different microservices built in working as external plugins. Then it reduces the size of the core application, and it helps us release independent releases for each and every individual thing. Like, for example, Apple has its own OS, but those iMessages is an app, is an external plugin built on top of their OS in some ways. If I talk about all of these things, any examples? I've told you a lot of examples out here, but I'm focusing on the word ecosystem over here. So ecosystem, like think about it, multiple things integrating with each other, talking together, working together. That is the main thing about an ecosystem. We talk about the Apple ecosystem. Why? Multiple things integrate each other to make it a seamless process altogether. I'm not focusing on a particular application. I'm focusing on an ecosystem out there. So this is the basic thing. The basic thing here I'm saying is that we need to add external apps into our code base. So if we add, like, maybe think about it, copy paste someone else's stuff into our code base, it will complicate our basic app itself, right? Let's talk about how do we generally implement them. So what happens is we have to have our code base separate and have to have those apps in a separate way where they operate in. What do I mean by a separate scope? So basically those things should be isolated within where they are working, as well as interacting when needed. When you develop these applications, you see you have to import services to do a particular task, right? So they have to be separate in their own scope to operate in. And there are multiple approaches to do this. I have highlighted a few common approaches over here. So exposing API endpoints. I guess almost all the applications do this. What do? Is they just open up a few of their functions as APIs, REST APIs, GraphQL APIs, any kind of an API, and they have some kind of an authentication for sure, but they just extend the functionality of their core outside. As simple as that. Similarly, webhooks. The difference between webhooks and APIs is not much. Webhooks is just a simpler version of an API, I should say. It's just a one-way communication, right? But this is also a way to actually go out there. Iframes. You might have used HTML iframes. It's similar to that. So you can control stuff, but basically you're running someone else's application into your application directly. So you don't have very much control over it to an extent. And the final thing is, which I've highlighted here, adding an integration component within your ecosystem. So adding an integration component means having them build something on your ecosystem that interacts with their stuff. That is the integration they are building in your ecosystem. So why is the fourth one so important? If you go out there and expose API points, endpoints, mostly you are helping people to build something from your features, right? You are opening up some stuff to external people to build in. Similarly for webhooks. But you don't have control over what they are showcasing you, what they are doing to your ecosystem particularly, right? So if you have an integration component built in, you can control how they actually manage your users, see what they are doing and everything like that. And then they can expose their webhooks, their API endpoints from their app, from their database into your integration, but not directly from your app to their core server. Make sure to ask any questions that you have throughout the way. So with that thing in mind, we'll talk about what we did with Rocket.Chat Core Engine. We definitely had the fourth option, adding an integration component within your ecosystem. So we, on top of our Rocket.Chat Core Engine, we had this particular node.js VM module, which isolated the scope. And on top of that, we built Rocket.Chat Apps. So let's understand this by understanding what Rocket.Chat actually is. You're using Discord right now for communicating a lot of things within this particular event, right? Similarly to that, there was Slack much earlier. We all use Slack, multiple people use Slack. And around 6-7 years ago, Rocket.Chat started as something very simple. Let's build an open source alternative to Slack. That was the basic idea at that point. So a lot of people in the community started over. It was an exciting project because Slack was paid, obviously. You can build something free, you can build something open to everyone. Everyone knows how the direction for it should be, and everything was going on nicely. But down the lane, what we realized was there was an untapped market which we can actually hit, where you can actually host your chat application particularly inside of their own server. So if you see Discord, if you see Slack, what happens is they have their everything like as a SaaS product. So basically, all of the things are within their databases. They can utilize the data however they want. But when you have something like this integrated within your own server, there's not a chance that other people can utilize the data from you. So it was always the goal of making this fully customizable communications platform. Now it has changed a lot. It has multiple features like federation, omnichannel. That's to talk about sometime later, but I'm focusing on the core Rocket.Chat, right? So the main thing was data protection, and the unique advantage was the self-hosting ability in an air-gapped environment. So everything is safe within their ecosystem, within their particular database. However, as our user base grew, we realized that we need a diverse pool of integrations in the workspace, and the maintenance complexity is going to increase a lot from developing, reviewing code to testing, making sure it's working or not, everything. So to address this and a lot of other problems, we set out to take a step further in our platform's flexibility, built that integration component we were talking about with the introduction of the Rocket.Chat Apps Engine. So Rocket.Chat Apps Engine is a framework that allows the development of Rocket.Chat apps. So the custom plugins with functionalities of the chat server, extending its capabilities. These apps allow for a tighter integration with whatever workflow our users, covering almost everything from incoming, outgoing integrations, bots, all sorts of stuff. And some interesting things like playing games along the way as well, having polls and everything. So a lot of these things. While developing this, we wanted all our workspaces to have access to apps without leaving the comfort of the intranet, right? So now we have to build integrations into the server that someone else has actually deployed for the Rocket Chat. Now, the thing was, we could actually easily have like a common server where all these apps are there, and we can just expose endpoints. And even when making integrations, everything can run from a central server, but this will actually expose the data of people, right? So we had this uncommon path of running these things inside of the Rocket Chat server itself. So with this premise said, we had a few things in mind. We have to run all these applications in a sandbox, or an isolated environment, exclusive context within the Rocket Chat server they have deployed, and to build bridges so that they can safely connect apps to the core functionalities. We set out to explore a lot of different things. And what we saw was the Node.js VM module was a very good alternative natively built by Node.js over here. So we have everything built on Node.js, right? Most of our things are on JavaScript. Almost everything is on JavaScript, if I say. So we had used this particular module, and we saw that it was isolating the scope in the first place. Let's talk about isolating the scope. Let's talk about virtual contexts in a bit, what I mean by those things. But before that, we need to understand how Node.js works. So a lot of people might know about the V8 engine. As a JavaScript developer, one might know that Node.js is built on top of Chrome's V8 engine, the thing that powers everything. Interesting thing about this is that it just directly compiles. It's like a runtime thing, right? Runtime environment where you can actually execute JavaScript code. The interesting thing is it directly translates the JavaScript code into machine code. So everything compiles very fast. So this, in a sense, think about it, gives a way of V8 as a role of an operating system, right? Running on top of your OS. So is it sounding to you like a virtual machine, right? Like you are giving some directly compiling JavaScript into machine code and it's running on top of your operating system. Kind of a virtual machine, right? It's not, it's a kind of a virtual machine. If I want to go in deep into it, it's a lot to cover. And I also don't know a lot about it. So basically, if I say it's kind of a virtual machine, that's easy as that. Cool. But if I talk about Node.js VM module, that's a very different concept. So Node.js, it's kind of creating some kind of a virtual machine for your total application to run in. Now, this particular module, what it does is it isolates the execution of the code it receives from the global scope and that it runs it directly into separate contexts. Okay, cool. So let's think about it. Here's my application running. Here's the context of the V8 what I'm running in. So what it does is, if we use the VM module particularly, it will create an alternate context, and the things will run in an alternate context which are run within that particular VM, right? So if you look around, it gives you access to APIs for running and writing code within different contexts. And when we saw about this, we saw and thought this is the perfect thing to build a localized environment within our server. This is not interacting with the core global scope of our server and isolating everything. And there are ways to communicate back and forth as well. So this is giving a sandbox environment within our server. So this was an interesting thing. So I'll quickly show you a small code base. This is directly from their documentation. It is actually showing you what they are doing. So if you go over here, you can see we are just getting the VM module. We are having a constant X as one right now. Okay. Now we created a new object inside of JavaScript. Cool. And inside of that object, we named X as 2. So now using their create context method, basically we are creating a new instance, new context inside of our main environment, virtual module, I should say. So we are creating this new context, and inside of that, we'll be running in the context. But first, we just assign this code constant It's basically a string which is telling us x is equals to x plus 40 and new declaration of a variable y as 17. So using the run context one, we are using just this code. We are just making it as a string and running it so it's easier to run. And in this new environment that we have created, a new context we have created, we are running this code. Now we console log and we can see this new context we have created, new environment.x is 42. X here was 2. It is 42. But if we see console log x, it's still 1, even though we have added 40 into it because it's in a separate context, same variable name. And if we go into y, it's 17 as we had declared as 17, and y is not even defined. And if we just console log it, it won't be defined. Isn't it interesting? Within the same application, we are having two different same variable names. One is even declared, one is not even declared. How is this possible? Because of these virtual contexts. So what is this context? I'm talking about a lot of virtual context, right? The context is here an alternative environment that we are creating with the use of this module. So this environment is nothing like a bunch of like simple key value pairs that you have for your shells, each directly built on top of the V8 engine we talked about earlier. As simple as that. So now let's talk about what we did. We built this particular, use that particular node.js VM thing. And this VM module is running on top of our core engine and directly making this Rocket.Chat app. Using the apps engine, you can build a Rocket.Chat app very easily. And I'll showcase more things later on. I wanted to cover this particular concept because this was interesting and I thought you might be interested in knowing more about it. So if you want to know more about how we implemented this, you can check out our experience in a blog we have recently written. So it basically talks about our experience, what we did, where we went wrong, what were our learnings, how we fixed that, and everything around that as well. This is a simple link to the blog, and I'll share that with you all in Discord as well. But if you want to know more, I'd had not a lot of time to cover everything, so I just wanted to cover the basic things around it. But one thing I wanted to just showcase over here once more was any downsides of using the VM. So definitely it's not a foolproof system. So the thing is, VM does not prevent all kinds of interaction from the outside world. It does to an extent, but still it is possible to escape that sandbox if you really want to, right? So recently they have added into their documentation, the VM module is not a security mechanism, and please do not run untrusted code over there. Earlier it was not there, and thanks to Node.js for adding it. So hence, before publishing any app, we go through this similar process, testing out each and everything, what's going on, and seeing if it's working perfectly or not. So this is the particular downside if I say about Node.js VM. But generally it works as expected. It works perfectly. But obviously you have to be mindful of what people are doing with your application particularly. And you know what? The best thing we talked about today, everything is open source. You can go out there, check out github.com/rocketchat. You can learn more about Rocket.Chat Apps Engine. Everything what we build, from Rocket.Chat core to Rocket.Chat Apps Engine to multiple apps that have been built on Rocket.Chat. Go out there, build from it, run it, learn from it, contribute into it. Make this world a better place. Definitely the cliche tech dialogue, I should say. So yeah, go out there, check it out. And one more thing, every year we participate in Google Summer of Code. So if you want to explore it further, I know a lot of people out here are students. So we participate in Google Summer of Code. A lot of people, like 20% of the projects are definitely built like Rocket.Chat apps, and rest actually contribute to the core engine as well. Like people have started coming over, understanding Rocket.Chat. It's a great opportunity for you if you want to do that. Just go out there, explore. If you like it or not, it's totally up to you. So that is the basic thing about it. I guess I can spend 2 more minutes just showing you how it works as well. So if you go out there, you can see this particular thing. This is our apps engine marketplace. There have been multiple apps already built on top of here. And if you go out there, they are from dad jokes to image search to Jiffy, Jira integrations, all sorts of stuff. This is my personal server. I've actually added a few apps over here, installed a few apps. I use these particular apps. Like for example, I use Jitsi a lot. So I just go there, name myself, and it just creates a Jitsi meet link for me where I can meet my colleagues. I can go out there in the game center. I can play something very easily. And it's all running within the server, which I've deployed somewhere in the local machine on a Linux server. And it's running inside of the Rocket.Chat server itself. How cool is that, right? So basically, these are all the things I wanted to showcase. Hoping you all liked it. Moving on to question and answers over here.
So folks want to know about the architecture for the plugin system.
So if I talk about the architecture, as I told you, it's all Node.js. Everything we have is built on top of JavaScript. So we have like the backend in Node.js. This particular thing is built on top of Node.js VM. And like when you write apps, you write apps in TypeScript. You can import different modules. There's an extent of importing NPM modules. If I talk about the other tech stack, our main like desktop app is built on top of Electron. Mobile app is built on top of React Native. So literally everything JS. Everything JS.
Are there any other inspiration for plugin systems?
Any other inspiration for plugin systems? Like I mentioned four ways of implementing plugin systems. So if you go out there, there are multiple other ways people have tried it over, right? Multiple like plugin systems are built as services, like as I mentioned, microservices on top of like whatever they want to build. Those are kind of integrations only. There are API endpoints, all sorts of stuff. Inspiration for API endpoints, Twilio API, one of the most common used API out there, right? For any kind of communication. There are APIs for GitHub, GitLab, directly integrating with anything you want, right? APIs are out there. Webhooks are for every single thing. Go out there, check out Zapier. Like it's an automation tool. There's N8N, there's an automation tool. They just give out different APIs to integrate almost anything in the world. There are multiple places where these things are being implemented, and external plugins is the common way of doing almost every work in the space out there.
Are there any other open source alternatives for Rocket.Chat?
Well, they are actually. So we have a few for example, Mattermost is one of our competitors in this space. So there are definitely more people out there. There are others as well. I guess I'm forgetting the name, but there are one or two more applications. But this capability of hosting it in the server, within your localized server with omni-channel present, this is the only app that is doing it right now. And hopefully we'll have much more things built over very soon as well.
All right, great. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.